The Hilton sale is on. Now through September 29th, you can save up to 20% on stays this fall and beyond. Long weekends, last-minute getaways, holiday gatherings. There's a Hilton stay for all of them. More moments, more experiences, more destinations. Now 20% off for a limited time because it matters where you stay. Don't wait. Book by September 29th and save up to 20% at Hilton.com. Terms apply. Hilton for the stay.
This episode is brought to you by Indeed. When your computer breaks, you don't wait for it to magically start working again. You fix the problem. So why wait to hire the people your company desperately needs? Use Indeed's sponsored jobs to hire top talent fast. And even better, you only pay for results. There's no need to wait. Speed up your hiring with a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
You're listening to A Catholic's Perspective with the Religious Hippie. That's me, the podcast all about being a young Catholic surviving in a secular world. Around here, we pray first, pop off second. Whether you're struggling, thriving, or somewhere in between, this podcast is for you. So grab an iced coffee and let's chat. Hi, my Jude Crew, and welcome back to the pod. I hope you guys are all doing well. Today, I'm drinking a cup of today's sponsor, and I just realized actually how weird that kind of sounded, so you guys know exactly what I mean, but I'll talk a little bit more about them later in this episode because if you're a coffee lover like me, you will definitely want to know about them. But honestly, I don't even really know where to begin this episode. I feel like so much has happened and it sort of feels like the world is in turmoil, but just remember not to give in to despair. We need to rise above all of the chaos that's happening. We are the church militant, okay? And so that's just something we really need to hold on to and to remember. You know, I'm continuing to pray for the repose of Charlie Kirk's soul and for his wife Erica and their 2 young children. And I ask that you do the same if you have not been already. And I'm also praying for all of the victims and those involved with the recent shootings. It can be really, I feel like it can be really hard to grasp what is happening, like the senseless violence that we are constantly experiencing. As humans, I truly believe that we were never created to see such horrors. And while it can be addicting to stay, or addictive, I guess, to stay glued to our phones, to wait for the next detail to come out, you need to put it down, okay? Spend time with your family, go outside, experience life. You can be informed, yeah, that's totally fine, but I know how the internet works, okay? It's really hard to look away when there's so much confusion and chaos happening, but you need to, okay? You need to for your own spiritual and mental well-being and for the well-being of those around you. When all this started going down, I took time off of social media. I didn't just hop on the bandwagon right away like a ton of people do. I needed to process a lot of this for myself, and I think there were already plenty of people talking about it, so it wasn't really as important for me to put my 2 cents out there. And I think it's really important for us to take our time with these things and to not just jump onto something that we don't have all the facts of just yet. There was a lot of misinformation floating around, and there probably still is, but I don't know about it. And it's just really important that we're careful about our sources and we realize that there's just a lot of information we don't have. And, you know, clarity will come with time. Or the government will just keep lying to us. But I digress. Point is, we definitely need to protect our peace. And with that being said, I also want to say that it's okay to not be okay. It's okay to be angry, to be scared, to be upset. Those are all natural human emotions. And if you weren't upset or shaken up about the recent shootings, I feel like there would be a deeper issue there and I would question your sanity. But we also cannot stay there. We can't stay in that emotionally turbulent state. We can't just be so scared that we become paranoid. We cannot become so angry that we lash out at those around us, and we can't be so upset that we cannot function even with like the simplest tasks, okay? It's all right to have emotions. It's okay for you to feel those things, but it's not okay for our emotions to control us. And I see that happening time and time again, especially on social media. I think it just kind of runs rampant there because everyone's so emotionally turbulent on social media, for better or for worse. So yeah, there's there's that whole thing. And I've been on a hiatus from the ministry for a while. I went back home to visit my family and spend time with my dad and my godmother and some of my best friends. And that was the first time in about 6 years that I wasn't working nonstop. And it actually changed something inside of me, and that's what this podcast is basically going to be about today. I'll kind of give a little bit of background because I think there are some people here who might not be familiar with me or the work that I do with this apostolate ministry, whatever you want to call it. And so, yeah, basically, I'll just give a little bit of background for those who aren't familiar. This ministry was born after I reverted back to Catholicism after being away from Catholicism for about 8 years. I was really in need of community because I just didn't know anyone who was Catholic at the time, and despite being raised Catholic, my family they weren't practicing, and all of my friends, including my boyfriend at the time, were Protestant. And there's nothing necessarily wrong with that, but I didn't have Catholic community, and that's what I was craving when I reverted. So I ended up going onto social media. Keep in mind that this is before COVID, and I was just kind of posting about my journey and my testimony. And then over time, like-minded Catholics started following me, and we started kind of growing together in this tiny little small but close-knit community. And that's exactly what I needed. And as I continued to grow in my faith, I just kept sharing what I was learning with others, and I was trying to help others also in their faith journey, trying to help them, I guess, not make the mistakes that I was making when I was going about this journey and figuring everything out. Keep in mind, again, I had absolutely no idea what I was doing. So not only was I figuring it out for myself for the first time, but I was also informing other people so they could avoid making the same mistakes, right? So I basically, just kept growing in my faith. I kept sharing and trying to help others. And truly, that was amazing, okay? But again, that was pre-COVID. The internet before COVID was a very different place, and it continues to morph and change with every trend or scandal that happens. Honestly, social media is so different, and it's continued being different since it was invented. So for 6 years, I've shared my experiences and I've helped others with their own journey, and that has been a blessing through and through. Like truly, so helpful. So many fruits came from that, good fruits. And then about a year and 6 months ago. Ooh, gosh, I can't talk. About a year and 6 months ago, I still can't talk. Whatever. I got married, okay, to the most amazing man, and our marriage has just been so incredible. Honestly, I love our marriage so much. I love Max so much, and there were just so many things about our marriage that I just truly see the fruits of, virtue-wise, but also it's just everything I've ever dreamed, truly. Everything I've ever dreamed has come true in our marriage, and I'm just so grateful every single day for my husband, for being just such an amazing man, being the rock in my life, and I don't know what I'd do without him, truly. But also, sadly, my dad was diagnosed with cancer, a glioblastoma, about 3 months before we got married. So this is a terminal brain cancer, and there's no cure. Suddenly, kind of like the best and the worst thing that could possibly ever happen to me was happening to me simultaneously. And the next few months after my dad's diagnosis, like right before we got married, and we found out about it because my dad lost his ability to speak properly. I think it's called like speech aphasia or something like that. It was basically just gibberish, kind of similar to somebody having a stroke, so he couldn't get out actual sentences or words. It was complete gibberish. And then on top of that, after he had his biopsy to figure out what this actually was, he ended up slowly losing the ability to move the right side of his body. So those 3 months were full of sleepless nights, long hours processing what just happened, because we were all shocked by it. My dad has always been really healthy, and he's an engineer. He always used his brain all the time, and it was just a complete shock. So while I was helping my family and trying to process what was happening, I'm also simultaneously preparing for what's supposed to be the best day of my life, and it was, but there was so much stress leading up to it, and so much just negativity. I was trying to choose what tablecloth colors to, we wanted at the venue, while simultaneously trying to process the fact that my dad was just diagnosed with a terminal illness. And that was just a really confusing and emotional time. It was a lot. So then while juggling all of that, okay, I was also still running the ministry full time, putting in upwards of 65 hours a week just to keep it running smoothly. And between script writing and filming and editing, it would take me about, I think it was around 2 to 3 weeks of 8-hour work days for one YouTube video. And then on top of that, I was recording podcasts, I was doing traveling, I was scheduling merch, trying to keep up with ads and affiliates that I had contracts for, among like just a bunch of other behind the scenes stuff that I don't need to bore you guys with. But there was just a lot going on. I was basically doing the job of like 10 to 15 different people, and that just wasn't sustainable. And I didn't realize it at the time. I think I kind of used it as a distraction as well. I liked distracting myself from what was going on in my family. But, you know, that's, I feel like, normal. I feel like you kind of want to distract yourself, but it wasn't healthy. It just wasn't a healthy type of coping mechanism because it was burning me out. And then after we got married, which was still the best day of my life, might I add, I was just completely burnt out. Honestly, I felt like my depression was returning with a passion and a vengeance, might I add. It was not good. And then, you know, I worked for hours and hours. Otherwise, I would just fall behind and then things would crash and burn. And I wasn't able to get outside or do the things I loved doing because my time was taken up by everything else. And I'm not complaining. I want to make that clear. I'm just letting you guys in to my world at this time. This was a daily reality for me. I would get up around 5 or 6 a.m. and depending on if my dad had appointments that day, I would get up earlier so that I could drive an hour to my parents and then take them to that appointment, make sure they got lunch and everything, drive them back, and then work until midnight, basically trying to get things, figured out for the ministry. And then I would wake up or go to bed earlier or later, depending on the situation, because I just needed to make sure things were staying afloat here, but that I was also helping my family, and that was just a really hard, it was just really hard to balance. But at that time, I also wasn't like taking care of myself. So when the depression did return with a vengeance, which I actually recently opened up about on some recent YouTube videos, I think, and I think I even did a podcast about it not too long ago, but just the depression was crippling. The anxiety was crippling. It was just really, really bad. And then we moved to St. Louis, new place, no friends. And that's not actually true. My best friend's family is very close. So I actually get to see her sister a lot, which is really great. And, you know, we've had friends pass through, stay with us for a little bit. Anyways, but everything just kind of piled on top of itself, and I was overwhelmed. I was traveling a lot, which I was so grateful for. I love to travel, but I was still constantly working or doing content, and whenever I would see my online friends, we would be doing content because that's what we do, you know? And, you know, I also can't go into tons of detail with my entire life over the last 3 years, so this is just like Sparks Note version, I guess. I'm just trying to give you guys as much context as possible without overdoing it or like oversharing or boring you guys. But we'll just kind of skip forward. So everything came to a head this year in July and August. I was crying every single night. I had imposter syndrome. I was getting constantly harassed sexually and just in general online on a daily basis. There was tons and tons of drama, and overall everything, again, was piling on top of itself, and I had to deal with it, and I decided I needed to unplug just completely. Okay, I had no idea how else to deal with it except just go home, see my dad, and see some friends, and just unplug from social media, the ministry, everything. Now, Max would have come with me, but he actually started work that week, so it became a solo trip instead. So against my better judgment, I bulked a ton of content because I was afraid that I would fall behind, and then you get punished if you fall behind on your content because they drop your viewership, the algorithm hates you, there's this whole thing. So I just bulked a lot of content, which burnt me out even more. And then I cried for a few days, and then I hopped on a train and headed for Chicago. And the goal was to be, you know, this trip was supposed to be just really chill and restorative, and then I was going to return to work really refreshed, not, you know, stressed out or anything, and I was going to have more ideas, I was going to be more creative, etc. That's not exactly what happened. So at first, it was really, really hard to not be on my phone, okay? Taking photos for content, creating reels, stuff that was like a muscle memory almost at that point. I had to remove social media from my phone, okay? Just completely remove it. Even that didn't completely work, but I tried, and I feel like you get points for trying. So it wasn't until I actually went to Wisconsin and saw one of my girlfriends there that everything kind of clicked. I don't know how to explain it. My prayer life was so much better, and stuff that I hadn't been able to do in years, like kayaking and hiking and all that stuff, we were doing. You know, we drove around, we went thrifting, we had bonfires, we watched movies, ate popcorn, and we just camped in her backyard for fun. And I just felt like I was in my element. I felt like I was coming back to life a little bit. I was finally doing the things that I love to do, the hobbies that I loved to do. And I didn't realize how long it had actually been, or how much I actually missed the outdoors and just being active. And a lot more happened on that trip. And despite, you know, it was only actually a couple days, I actually became a completely different person. And when I called my husband, I would call him daily while I was in Wisconsin or while I was in Chicago, and he instantly noticed a complete change in me. And really the only thing that changed was being offline, not being on my phone, not scrolling through social media, actually spending time with good people, getting boba tea because that never hurts, and overall just doing things that I really, really enjoyed doing. And I hadn't realized, you know, how much my life was revolving around the ministry instead of the ministry revolving around my life. It became extremely unhealthy. And once I was forced to shut that part of my life off and really just be in the moment, everything changed. And the world genuinely looks brighter now, not just mentally speaking, but physically. Since I'm not exposed to high levels of saturation on my phone constantly, the world colors have returned. And they're beautiful and bright and vibrant. And I had no idea that the constant exposure to oversaturated like edits online and posts and whatnot were contributing to the world around me looking duller. Isn't that, like, that's so crazy to me. And I cannot tell you guys just how much being off social media, not living life to film content, has just changed my entire perspective on so many things, life included. And my friends and I, we took photos. And I posted some, sure, but the intention wasn't to take photos to post or to make videos for content. We were just goofing around and we wanted to document it. And then later, if we wanted to post some of them, we would. But the main intention was just to have fun, and the photos were just for us. And then if we decided later, like, oh, this is a cute one, I want to post it, we did. But it wasn't for social media. And yeah, it just totally changed my perspective. It's so crazy. But yeah, I came back from Chicago, just a completely different person this time. I was happy, but not just happy, I would say joyful. I started getting back into my hobbies like writing music, watercolor, hiking, and my husband was shocked at the radical change, and we talked about it a lot. And actually, we still talk about it. And he's just so thankful that I'm doing better, and not just like doing better, but actually thriving. And my manager noticed a huge difference. Kevin noticed a huge difference. Shout out to Kevin. Jarrell noticed a huge difference. Like, everybody's been noticing a huge difference, including my producer. Like, everybody's noticed that I'm more like myself again. I'm more happy. And it's just crazy how much it's changed. So, okay, so why am I telling you this?
This episode is sponsored by Friskies, who would like to tell your cats hi. Now, if that didn't get your cat's attention, there's one thing that always does the trick. Just pour some Friskies crunchy food in the bowl and you'll hear those paws come running. Works every time. With so many Friskies choices, you can always bring your cats running from their secret napping spots. There's always more to explore. See for yourself at friskies.com or visit your local store.
Switch to Shiseido Benefiance Wrinkle Smoothing Eye Cream and discover why people are calling it the best eye cream. A powerhouse formula that targets 5 types of eye area wrinkles. 96% of users saw reduced wrinkles and diminished dark circles after just 7 days. Shop Shiseido Benefiance Wrinkle Smoothing Eye Cream at Sephora and discover how change can happen in the blink of an eye. Consumer tested by 110 women.
Well, mainly because I consider you guys to be my friends and friends care about each other, but also because I will be stepping away from the ministry significantly. I prayed about it a lot, and God has made it pretty clear that if I decided to finally step back, that he would also support that decision. So I decided to keep my Instagram, and I'm going to finish out this season of the podcast, and then I'll decide whether or not I want to keep going with this podcast, maybe start a different podcast. But since I'm already off of X, I actually deleted my account today. I have to commit because this is healthy. This is what I need to do, and I feel so much better doing it. So I will be off YouTube. My videos are going to remain up for those who need them, but now that I have fallen back in love with life again, I don't want to give that up. You know, I want to live it and impact the lives offline just as much as I have online. I feel like God's really calling me to a more in-person type of work, and I'm not sure what that means yet. I don't know what that looks like yet. Only he does. But I do want to be more involved in the real world. Social media just isn't what it used to be. It used to be an extension of our lives. Now it just kind of feels like a battlefield of comparison and competition. And while I understand some people might disagree with me, if you were in it the way that I was and you saw all the behind the scenes stuff, you would come to the same conclusion. So while this isn't the end of the religious hippie, I am going to scale back significantly, and I've already started. I'm not just a better wife offline, but also a better friend, a better daughter, a better sister. I'm more emotionally available to those that I love, and my mental health is no longer tanking, which is honestly the best part. And it took me a really long time to come to this conclusion about social media, and to realize that social media was the problem, because it's just been such a huge part of my life for so long. I just didn't really know who I was without it. But then I found myself, and I was much happier when my life didn't revolve around social media or content. And I'm here to encourage other content creators, not just Catholic ones, all different types, to not lose themselves in the algorithms or to peer pressure of social media. In moderation, I think it's fine. But it can easily creep in and control you, whether or not you realize it. And while I constantly prayed about where to go with the ministry, I was just always afraid that I was projecting onto God what I wanted. So, not thinking that maybe he wanted the same thing for me, to step back. God actually cares about my well-being and wants what's best for me. What a crazy concept. But I mean, it's true, okay? It's true. And I was so afraid that because I wanted to step back, for the last 3 years, I wanted to step back, that when I got some confirmation from God to do so, that was me projecting my wants onto him, and therefore it's not what he wanted me to do. It's so backwards, all right? But I'm sure many of you guys can relate because it's definitely a human experience, and it sucks, it sucks. So I tried so many ways to balance social media. I was taking really long breaks, reinventing my content, setting limits with social media, but I was still doing the same workload of 10 to 15 people. And that is what really needed to change. I had to cut back, not spread myself so thin. And the biggest time sucker I found was YouTube. And that wasn't the case in the beginning of starting all of this. It was very fruitful for a very, very long time. But then I started running out of ideas. I felt like I was more solid in my faith. I wasn't going on this finding my faith journey anymore. And while I had a lot of information to share with people, there were only so many times I could share that information before I was just regurgitating the same thing over and over and over again. I was running out of ideas, and I felt like I was grasping at straws, and I had no inspiration for videos anymore. And I thought I was a failure. Why can't I keep up? Is this writer's block or something wrong with me? How are they doing so well and I can barely keep up? I would constantly compare myself to others because it seemed like they were so seamlessly gaining followers and gaining views and everything like that. And they had great video ideas, but I was just coming up dry. And so I went through a lot of identity crises, because, I'm no longer the teenager I was when I started the ministry, but I'm also still young. I am married, but we have no kids yet, not by choice. We're working on that. It's a little bit of a sensitive topic, but maybe we'll discuss that at some point. I'm not really ready at the moment, but I feel like I felt like I no longer fit in anywhere in the Catholic creator world. And that's not due to people. That's my own thing. And that's not a bad thing either, okay? I don't think it's bad to feel like I didn't fit in anywhere, but I also had no idea what to talk about anymore since I keep my marriage private and I don't do things I used to do as a single teenager. It was just all really, really confusing at the time. But now I have clarity and I understand what God wants from me now. And that's a lot more, I guess, calming and healing than anything else, if that makes sense. And I want to continue sharing that clarity and everything. I want to continue that, but within reason, within my own means, without sacrificing my mental health. Like, I can now enjoy a cup of coffee without having this anxiety and weight of having to do the job of at least 10 to 15 people. But actually, you know what? Speaking of coffee, I want to talk to you guys about today's sponsor really quick. By now, if you followed me on Instagram, you guys know that today's sponsor is Gloria Patri. So yes, I have been considered the iced coffee queen for almost 6 years and counting, but I haven't partnered with a coffee brand long-term or actually at all that I can remember because I'm a little bit of a coffee snob. I take the quality of my coffee very, very seriously, and it's sort of like my husband's passion/hobby, so we're both very, very picky. We're like coffee connoisseurs, if you will. But I met Clay, the owner of Gloria Patri, in Tennessee. Actually, we were at the same event together, and he just gifted me one of his Trinity boxes. So it contains a light, medium, and dark roast. And I won't go into the nitty-gritty detail of like the bean quality and how it was roasted. That would probably bore you guys, but let's just say it's like really, really good. I now drink hot coffee actually because of them. Yeah. Turns out I was actually just drinking really crappy coffee and I never liked hot coffee because of that. So yeah, now I can drink straight espresso. I can drink hot coffee, pour overs, iced coffee. Any type of coffee. I'm not that into it. It's more my husband's hobby. He makes the coffee. I drink it. It's great. But the point is, I love it all. Like, I love all of their roasts, which is also very rare. And yeah, overall, it's really, really good. So the point is, you should try their coffee too. Use my promo code HIPPIE10, HIPPIE 10. They're a company that you just feel really good about supporting because they have the same morals as you. So yeah, go to gloriapatri.com and try them. Their link is in the show notes. Okay, getting back into our topic now. I don't want to post things to appease the social media algorithms. I don't want to panic when I miss posting one day and then my views and my revenue just completely tank. Okay, I don't want social media to control me. I don't want it to control you either. So I want to still post on Instagram, but on my terms and when I actually have something to say, not just because I'm dropping views or followers. I want to post some reels if I actually get an idea or something that makes me happy, not because an audio is trending or even if it has to do with Catholicism or anything like that, just because I want to share it with you guys and because I feel like maybe it's important. I don't want to feel like I have to hop on a trend to stay relevant. I want to make sure that I'm doing social media on my terms and it's not controlling me, if that makes sense. I also want to keep my friendships that I've made while doing this work for the church, and I still want to do work for the church. But I'm just, when I'm called to do it, not me forcing it in that way and I guess risking my mental health for it. I want to help others and not expect anything in return. And while I already do this technically, but usually I get pushback from people because you shouldn't do things for free and you shouldn't help people for free. And in my opinion, that's absolutely BS. My friend Connor is one of the kindest people I know, and we've talked about this extensively. Gatekeeping in the Catholic world is so prevalent and it's so stupid. So stupid. Also, go follow Connor because he posts awesome stuff. I'll put his stuff in the show notes, but you should definitely go follow him because he has practical ways of becoming a saint, and I think he is really, really called to this line of work, and you definitely need to check out his stuff. Anyways, I've talked to a lot of big content creators and some smaller ones, even some OG ones like myself or people who have jobs in the Catholic world, and a lot of them are cutting back on social media as well. They basically see what I now see too, and that is that social media has changed, and because of the algorithms and unhealthy posting schedules and just everything in between, it's really become more of a vice than a means to help people. When I first started this ministry, I was working at PetSmart. I went kayaking or hiking almost every day. I played the cello. I took voice lessons. What I'm basically trying to get at here is that my life did not revolve around social media. But once it started to revolve around social media, that's when everything went downhill. So now I'm backtracking, getting things back on a healthy level. But I know that there are some people listening that just aren't going to understand this, and that's totally okay. I don't expect everybody to know what this is like, and I definitely don't blame anyone for being upset. I also have narcissistic trauma, so I tend to over-explain myself, but I also want to give enough context within reason. But I just want you guys to know that this is needed. Okay, this needed to happen, and I'm actually thriving now. I feel more creative, and I've had breakthroughs in my prayer life that I just haven't had in years, and it's just been a complete 180, truly, a complete 180. And now, okay, with all of that background, probably more than you asked for or wanted, but I want to inspire you to do the same, okay? I know there have been upticks in people understanding the issues of social media and how it negatively impacts our brains and relationships, but I want you to start taking this seriously if you haven't already. Do you doom scroll? Do you binge watch Netflix? Are you addicted to cortisol? Are you constantly on edge, paranoid, or upset about what's going on in the world? Just start understanding how social media is used to keep us on edge, addicted to cortisol. You know, we were never meant to see or hear about so much negativity in one day as human beings. And the more negativity we consume, the more negative we become. That's just common sense. You are what you eat, so you are what you consume mentally too. And I think it's great if you still use social media for funsies. Like, you don't doom scroll and you only use it to stay up to date with friends, but hardly anybody actually uses social media for that anymore. Now it's just plagued with ads. Influencers are trying to sell you something so that they can afford rent for another month, and just constant negativity. This news that's meant to keep us upset and paranoid, people constantly fighting, and the endless drama and scandals. Many people will argue that social media can still be used for good. Sure, can be. Those are the key words. However, the majority of people using social media don't seem to be using it for good. Okay? There is some good on social media, like Catholic creators, Bishop Barron, the Bible in Your podcast, etc. But compared to the majority of what is on social media, pornography, ads, etc., this is barely a speck in the void. Porn runs rampant on most of these apps, especially on X and Instagram. Ads are shoved in your face constantly. AI is taking over, and it's becoming harder and harder to tell what is actually real and what is fake. And most of what's on social media is fake. Oh, so you're telling us to get rid of social media completely? No, unless you feel called to do that, of course. I mean, I won't argue with you if you decide that, but I still have my Instagram and this podcast, but I am telling you, not asking, telling you to be more aware of how social media is affecting you. What are you consuming? Are you stalking an ex? Please stop doing that if you're doing that. That's really cringe. Are you living vicariously through other people? Are you doom scrolling? Is it affecting your sleep habits and your productivity? I am at least 60% less productive when I am on my phone or when I've scrolled through social media during a break, because then I'm more distracted and I'm even more irritable too. And I would constantly go back and forth on my goals with social media. I would set app limits. I would do really well one week and then just fall back into the same pattern the next week. Just like scrolling and posting like my life depended on it. Newsflash, my life did not depend on it. I just felt like I was behind because the internet moves at lightning speed. Anyway, but what really changed for me, I think, was my hobbies. I love getting outside and just in general being active. So I got a gym membership. I try to go on hikes when the weather permits, and I'm replacing the time that I would be spending on social media with something more productive. Because if you take something away, you have to replace it with something else. So I got back into watercolor painting. I plan hikes for my husband and I still have this podcast, which keeps me busy. And I think it's the right amount of online work for me at the moment. I bake a lot, and I found some actually really, really yummy recipes, and maybe I'll share those with you guys. I've even picked up new hobbies like chess. I am not good, but I try. and you still get points for trying. I've also brushed up on like my wilderness survival skills, and we're looking at ranges near us to brush up on our shooting too. So, plus the dishes always need to be done. I cook dinner every night. I make sun tea since it's Max's favorite. I also love it, but it's a little nice iced tea treat on a really hot Missouri day. Basically, what I'm saying is there is just always something to do. There's always a skill to learn or to improve on, and I do not need to waste my time scrolling and seeing what other people are doing when I have my own life right here, right now, that needs my attention. Like when I'm 80 years old, I don't want to be looking back on my life and a majority of it's just TV, social media, and screens in general. I want to live. I want to experience life, make memories with the people that I love. That is what I want to remember when I'm older. I won't even remember the bazillion reels that I've combed through for hours every day. And actually, I also heard that the constant influx of information from social media every day is causing early Alzheimer's or dementia in younger people, or that people will be more susceptible to it due to how much time they're spending on social media. And that's kind of horrifying, honestly. So maybe take that into account too. I don't know. The cons are just adding up. Okay, they just keep adding up. And they started adding up for me in a very snowball-like way until the ever-consuming snowball kind of just took me with it and destroyed everything in its path. Okay, maybe that's a little bit dramatic, but at the same time, it's pretty accurate. I feel like I can also better connect with people now, and overall, like, the pros of cutting out most of, if not all, social media from my life have been 100% positive. I have absolutely no cons to report, except maybe being, like, a slight bit bored sometimes, but like boredom inspires creativity, so I can't even say that that's a con. And I think it took me a really long time to get where I am. I don't expect everybody listening to understand or even experience what I've experienced. Maybe your experience has been completely positive and you have absolutely no cons about social media. But if you are that kind of person, chances are you've either set healthy boundaries and limits with social media already, or you've just gotten used to it controlling you and you don't know what it's like outside of it. One of the two. Either way, I think more and more people are starting to kind of wake up to the dangers of social media and how it controls us and is used against us. And I'm not saying to abandon it completely. We still need voices out there, and it's a mission field. But at the same time, we also need to make sure that we aren't being sucked in and becoming the ones who need saving. Now, I do plan on giving you guys like 3 tips on how you can start cutting out social media, but really at the end of the day, you need to practice self-control. None of these tips are going to work if you do not have self-control. And you don't need to be perfect overnight, okay? It's something you need to work on, and I've had to work on it too. But in order to reach the point that I am now, self-denial and self-control is the 2 things you really need to get under control. By denying your flesh constantly, not having that donut, taking the stairs, take a cold shower, give up meat for a day, get your flesh under control. It's going to take time, but that's really what's going to make or break any habit or vice that you have. Also pray the rosary, obvi. Okay, so I've said my piece about that. Self-control is very, very important. I'm going to give you guys 3 tips. And I don't want these to be the most obvious tips that you guys are probably already aware of, like app timers and limiters, get a hobby, don't scroll when you first wake up, charge your phone outside your room, etc. Like, we've all heard those. We already know about those. The ones I mentioned might be somewhat obvious, but I'm just hoping they're not as obvious as the usual ones because I want to give you guys refreshing things to try. So number 1 is to get a dumb phone or only have social media on your computer or laptop. Not everybody can afford a dumb phone, and I had one for a while, but with the work and everything that I do, it became nearly impossible to do what I needed to do. So instead, I put all of my social media on my computer for a while to just kind of help break up the habit. And this really helped a ton, honestly. I even preferred it, to be honest, in a lot of ways, especially when it came to X, Facebook, and there was like YouTube. I couldn't really do Instagram from my desktop, but it still worked. But yeah, I have Instagram on my phone, but I mean, I've hardly gone on it because I have broken the addictive cycle of grabbing my phone when I'm bored. Now I cook, I bake, I take a walk, I listen to a podcast, I watercolor, and I just feel calmer. I'm not so stressed out, and I have a cool piece of artwork or a yummy treat afterwards. So I think that's a 10 out of 10, in my opinion. But when it comes to dumb phones, my husband has like researched so many different kinds, but eventually he just got a Google Pixel and downloaded Linux onto it. So instead of like the Samsung or Apple ISO, it's a completely different one that doesn't track your data or overstimulates you. So he put Linux actually on my laptop too, which has been super great. I don't really know how to explain it, to be honest. I'm not a tech person, but long story short, Linux can basically turn a smartphone into a dumb phone if you let it. And in general, it's just safer for your privacy. Okay, tip number 2, the black and white phone. I don't know if you knew this or not, but our phones are actually meant to keep us addicted to them with the flashy lights and the bright colors and the constant stimulation. It makes the world around us less interesting and pretty dull. So the alternative? Make the phone more dull and less interesting instead. Every single phone has an option to turn it black and white. You might have to Google how to do it on your specific phone, but it's in your settings somewhere. I promise you don't have to download anything or pay for anything. I do it with mine all the time, and it is a game changer when I am trying to focus. When things are just less colorful, they're less interesting to our brains, so we're more likely to get bored, and that'll really help break the cycle. Even if you do scroll on black and white, it's still less interesting, so you won't spend as much time doom scrolling because you won't be getting the same dopamine hit. Hopefully that makes sense. Okay, and tip number 3. For every minute you spend on social media, you also have to spend doing something productive or creative. This one is a bit tougher, okay, I will admit, but it really makes you think about how much time you're spending on social media. A half hour of scrolling goes by a lot quicker than half an hour of painting or walking or work. So it's really helpful to have this routine in place so that you are at least either simply being productive because you're not going to be on social media, or you at least will have some sort of capacity to be creative and productive. Okay, so I know that these tips aren't mind-blowing, but I think if you're serious about quitting social media or trying to just get the addiction under control, these things will be very helpful, and they've been helpful for me. So that's basically all I have for you guys today. That's kind of the update for everything. And, I just love you guys, and I really do appreciate all of your guys' support and love and prayers, because truly I would not have the courage to do this without you guys. And I know it can just feel really scary when somebody steps back, but I'm still here for you. I promise. I promise I'm still here for you, whether that's because I'm praying for you or because I'm genuinely still putting out some content here and there. But it's just my mental health has to come first. And if I'm not taking care of myself, then I'm not taking care of you guys. And you guys are truly, you inspire me. And I really want to be there for you guys and make sure that I'm putting out good content for you guys. So yeah, I just really appreciate all of your help, and just know I'm always praying for you guys, whatever you guys need, always in my prayers. And that's all I really have for you guys today. Don't forget to grab some coffee from gloriapatri.com, code hippie10. Thanks so much for tuning in. Don't forget to rate, comment, share, and subscribe. I'll talk to you guys in the next podcast. Bye. This podcast is produced by Amber Rose and is distributed by Metacortex Publishing. This podcast is copyright by The Religious Hippie. Any previously trademarked or copywritten content is used by permission. Information and opinions in this podcast should not be construed as medical advice. Follow me on Instagram or Facebook at The Religious Hippie. I appreciate you all. Thank you for listening. Bye.